Is the galaxy a graveyard with no alternative? Is it worth saving for a telescope instead of buying a pair of binoculars now? What would cause more damage, an icy comet or a rocky asteroid? And in Q&A Plus, should the Triangulum Galaxy get a better PR team?
Wandering Fool, is the galaxy a graveyard? Is there no alternative? I don't know if I entirely understand the question, although I really enjoy the question. It's a very kind of poetic sounding question. And so I'm going to just interpret the question. And hopefully the way I interpret it is the way you were intending it. Which is that the galaxy, the Milky Way, is producing about one star on average per year. And we are way beyond a time called cosmic noon, which is when the galaxy was in the highest rate of star formation. That now everything is just settled down. And in fact, the galaxy is dying. We are using up all of the stores of gas and dust to be able to create new stars, and that rate of star formation is going to decrease. You will get this brief period when we collide with Andromeda or collide with the galaxy in Triangulum, and you'll get a sort of surge of star formation again, but then that will settle down as well. And then that will be it. Those will be all of the galaxies that are going to merge with us. And so we will turn into a giant elliptical galaxy like M87, and then we will become red and dead. And over time, the hottest, brightest stars will explode as supernova, turn into black holes, neutron stars, and then stars like our sun will wrap up their lives and turn into white dwarfs. And then stars that are smaller than our sun, red dwarfs, will eventually fully use up all of the fuel inside of them, and then they'll just cool down to the background temperature of the universe. And 100 trillion years from now, the Milky Way galaxy will be dark, because there will just be almost no star formation anywhere inside of it. And that is the fate that it's going to be facing all of the galaxies out there in the universe, that we are way beyond the party, cosmic noon, about 2 billion years after the Big Bang, that everything is now just settling down and going quiet. It's going to take a while, but not forever. And there will be a time in the far, far future where there will be no usable energy anywhere. And that's the heat death of the universe. And then things will probably continue forever in this place where nothing interesting will ever happen again. Victor O.E. How would an icy comet impact differ from a rocky asteroid? It's the density of the object. So an icy comet is going to be less dense than a rocky object. So if they're the same size, then the rocky object is going to have more mass. And so it's going to do more damage when it impacts. It's thought that like when a comet impacts the Earth, if it's smaller, then it will actually explode in the high atmosphere. And you get this air burst, which can be very damaging. You know, it's thought that the Tunguska explosion in 1908 was the result of an airburst. And so instead of this thing hitting the ground and carving out a crater, it broke apart in the high atmosphere and just detonated. And that's the kind of thing you would get for something that is a pile of rubble as opposed to a solid block of metal or even a solid block of rock. So you get different effects. Airbursts are damaging, but while solid objects hitting the ground are damaging too. Nathaniel, buy astro binoculars now or save money for telescope? I would probably buy the astro binoculars now. A pair of 15 by 70 Celestron Skymasters are going to set you back about $100, but you can even pick them up on sale or pick them up used for half that price. $50, and they're an amazing pair of binoculars. Like, you can see comets, you can see the rings of Saturn, you can see the moons of Jupiter, you can see bands across the surface of Jupiter, you can see how the moon looks amazing, and then you can see a lot of other deep sky objects. You can see Andromeda Galaxy, you can see the Orion Nebula, you can see star clusters, globular star clusters. They're great. I really like my pair of binoculars, and then we use them for birding. So if there's birds out in the garden in front of us, we're able to examine them with the binoculars, and they're easy to use. So yeah, it's always go with that. And then I would probably go with like a 6-inch Dobsonian telescope when you can afford one. But even that, if you're more interested in just taking pictures, I would skip to like get a C-Star instead. As your first telescope. It's funny. Like, I was using the C-Star and the Vesper last night, and the C-Star is fast. It is really fast. It connects to my network directly, and so I can then control it with my phone or my computer or whatever. I don't need to pair it with Bluetooth or with Wi-Fi directly to the telescope. While the Vespera, I can't connect it to my Wi-Fi. I have to run a Wi-Fi on the telescope, and then I have to put my phone in a way that it accesses the Wi-Fi only from the telescope. And then I can't use my phone to look up stuff because now it's connected directly to the telescope. And so it can only be a controller for the telescope. Like, I'm now just kind of ranting about the experience that I have. And the Vespera is very slow. You set it out and you start to go through this sort of boot up sequence, and it does focusing. It took about 15 minutes for it to get to a place where it could start taking pictures, while the Seastar is done in a minute. When it's ready to go in about a minute from when you set the thing out, it's ready to start taking pictures. So, so far, although the Vespera, the pictures are much better than the Seastar, but just the ease of use, the Seastar is an amazing little telescope, and the pictures are great. Like, I was taking pictures of the Dumbbell Nebula last night, and they look great. And I was showing them to my wife, and I'm like, okay, here's one, here's the other. They've both been taking pictures for 30 minutes. Which one do you like better? She's like, well, I don't know. I think I like this one a little better. And that was the Vespera. So the Vespera takes better pictures, but from an ease of use standpoint, boy, I really enjoy the Seastar. They've nailed it, just nailed it. And they're a fifth the price, right? The Vespera is about $2,500 and the Seastar is $500.
It's time to shout out all the new $5 patrons and above: Bruce Crum, Carl, Zebek, Alan Caholan, Tom Engwall, Alonzo Morales, Rich Houston, Forrest Kraft, Michael Rice, and Mark Allen. Join the club at patreon.com/universe today.
Wandering Fool, would you like to spend more time with your telescope? No, I mean, where I live, we don't get a lot of clear skies here on the west coast of Canada. We had one last night, which was great. I got the telescope out, but I'm a morning person, not a night person. And so I have a really hard time staying up past about 10 o'clock. Now, with the telescopes that we have, you can plan out your evening's observations. So you just set them out, plug them in, plan what you want to look at, and then you come back the next morning and they've taken all their pictures. That's perfect for me because I'm already asleep. So no, I want to spend less time with the telescope. I want to spend more time looking at the pictures that I took with the telescope. Spending time with the telescope is a hassle because you're just like having to fine tune things, having to wrestle with the telescope. And instead, you just want to be able to have pictures show up. And that's what these modern smart telescopes let you do. Casey Ream, might younger people have any advantages as astronauts over older people? Yeah, I mean, health. Right? So what you get for a younger person is that they're in better health on average, in general, especially people who are training to become astronauts. The advantages that older people have is skills. So many astronauts, they have a pilot's license, they have an advanced degree, often multiple advanced degrees, and then they've gone through the astronaut corps program, and they're well-rounded human beings, and that requires a certain level of wisdom. And so you talk to any astronaut and you get why they're an astronaut. They are interesting and they are well-spoken, and you feel like you could work well with them in any endeavor and that you could count on them to save your life. And that's what you want. And so often young people, haven't developed all of those skills and training and wisdom and experience and expertise. And so there's this kind of sweet spot between where you have somebody who is young and healthy, but is also has the right experience and personality to be a great astronaut. And so it's sort of a balance. And, there have been astronauts that have been in their 60s. There have been astronauts that have been in their 20s, and it all seems to work out. And I don't think there's any, that you need to sort of push the scale either way, really. Annie Alexander, Fraser, have you thought about having a section of Space Bites for reporting findings from Chinese language articles? You're the only astronomy YouTube channel I know with the ability to report this news. I don't do any separate reporting for Chinese news that's happening. We just fold it into our regular coverage. So one of the things that I do, which not a lot of other even space reporting sites do, is I'm I get all my press releases from the Chinese Space Agency. I read Xinhua. I'm sort of watching carefully about all of the developments that are happening. It's really tough. I've not mastered how to keep track of everything that's going on in Chinese space exploration, but I do my best. And then we report on that in Universe Today, and then we cover that in Space Bites. And so, we could do a much better job. And I have put out a bunch of requests to various parts of the Chinese Space Agency to do interviews with people working on their space telescopes, people working on some of their rockets, people working on their lunar landing program, and nobody's gotten back to me. So I think my next step is to probably go to China, set up interviews and see if I can actually interview some of the people behind the stuff and talk to them. So it is an unfolding, it is a weak spot in our coverage because it is, becoming more and more relevant to what's happening around the world. And it is a very challenging nut to crack. Beyond just me learning how to read Chinese, it's culture issues, there's secrecy issues, there's, and I come from a country that is, not the United States. So, there's some level of neutrality, but still it's a tricky thing to do. So I haven't cracked it yet. And so this is one of the great challenges of my reporting career, is to learn how to accurately report on stuff that's happening in China. The very best person is Andrew Jones. And he does reporting for Space News, for space.com, and is sort of quite tied into events that are happening with the Chinese Space Agency. And so generally I sort of look at the reporting that he's doing and then go how did he learn that? And then I sort of try to reverse engineer his reporting to go oh, okay, I see. He was watching Baidu, or he was reading Weibo, and there was a bunch of channels that he was following on Weibo that were reporting on this. And okay, right. But it's a challenging thing to be able to do. So I think also there's Dongfang Hour here on YouTube, which is another channel that specializes just in what's happening in Chinese Space Agency. So I think if you want the best reporting, follow Dongfang Hour here on YouTube and seek out Andrew Jones reporting on the web. Annie Alexander, do you think the Triangulum Galaxy should get a new PR team? Andromeda keeps stealing all the limelight. Triangulum should get more love. Yeah, I mean, Triangulum is the other large galaxy that you can see with the unaided eye if you know where to look. It's hard, but you can see it. And it's not as big as Andromeda is, but it's definitely on a collision course with us. And that the three galaxies are going to merge. And I guess it's just that Andromeda is bigger and brighter and gets all of the attention, but Triangulum is right there. Maybe it just needs to try harder. Now, Triangulum has the largest star-forming region that we know of in the local group, bigger than anything we've ever seen in Andromeda. So maybe we should just focus our attention on that, this ridiculous star-forming region with tons of stars that are dozens of times the mass of the sun and popping off as supernovae.
All right, those are all the questions that we had this episode. Thank you, everyone who asked your questions in the YouTube comments, everybody who joined me for the live show back when we used to do those. We'll be back in a little over a week, so stay tuned for that. I'll put that into the calendar, and I can't wait to be back in cold Canada. But now I'm going to chat a bit about a piece of hardware that I'm really excited about. But first, I'd like to thank our patrons. Thanks to Abe Kingston, Bear Lake Roofing, Brian Bodie, Caradwan, Chuck Hawkins, Commander Bielak, Ty Nielsen, Dark Finger, Dave Verbath, David Giltonen, David Matz, Evan Pro, Greg Feely, James Clark, Jeremy Mattern, Jim Burke, Jordan Young, Josh Schultz, Marcel Smith, Michael Purcell, Nordspace, OneStepForAnimals.org, Porovak, Brink Haidu, Richard Williams, Sean Sargent, Stephen Fowler Munley, Team 49, Telescopes Canada, and Wolfgang Klotz, who support us at the Master of the Universe level. And all our patrons, all your support means the universe to us. So in the last couple of weeks, a new piece of hardware has been announced from Valve, people who make Steam, and their previous gadget was the Steam Deck, which I have never used a piece of electronics as much as I use my Steam Deck. It is worn in. And I really just don't game on anything but my Steam Deck now. Most recently, I'm playing Path of Exile, which has been sort of a new league, and I'm having a lot of fun. But I've put in like 1,000 hours into Project Zomboid. I've played Stellaris. I played like so many games on the Steam Deck. And they've announced their new hardware, which I'm really excited about. So the first thing is the Steam Machine, and this is going to be like a small, like a desktop PC, but it's going to be running Steam OS. Plus, and then they've got the new Steam Frame, which is going to be their virtual reality glasses. And like, I've got a Meta Quest and it mostly collects dust, but there are a bunch of issues with it in terms of like lag and the kinds of games that I can run on it. So I'm kind of excited to pick up a Steam Frame. So I might or might not, I'm not sure. And then the last thing is the Steam controller. And this is really big. This is, you know, if there's any that I'm probably going to buy, it's going to be the Steam controller, just because I really like the control scheme on the Steam Deck. And even when you use like a regular controller to play games on your computer, they're missing the additional functionality. You can map the buttons, there's touch pads and things like that. So I'm really excited about that. Now, I'm not being paid for this. I'm just sort of genuinely excited, and I will absolutely be buying the Steam machine when it comes out, and probably the Steam Frame and probably the Steam controller. But Linus Tech Tips did a great review of all of that stuff. And sort of interesting side note, they're based in Vancouver, which is the city that I used to live in, and the place where I used to get my computer gear from was from NCIX, which is the company that Linus used to work for. And I can remember coming in to NCIX and seeing Linus, and he probably even helped me buy a PC in the past. And so I really should go and check in and see how everything's going with what they're doing in Vancouver. So anyway, I'll put a link to their reviews and information, and they've got like tons of information about all of this gear, and it's going to be, I think, great for being able to play video games. Like I said, super nerd. I love my video games, and I think it's going to take it to the next level. All right, we'll see you next time.